Did you know that in the 60-year film franchise history of James Bond, we're currently facing the longest gap between movies with no end in sight? While fans eagerly await news of who'll next don the famous tuxedo, Amazon's $8.5 billion acquisition of MGM has led to unprecedented behind-the-scenes tension. Even more shocking, the next Bond film might not hit theaters until 2026 or later, marking a potential 5-year drought for cinema's longest-running franchise. The James Bond franchise has been a cornerstone of cinema since Sean Connery first introduced himself as Bond, James Bond, in 1962. Over 25 films and 6 decades, only 7 actors have officially played 007, each bringing their own interpretation to the role while maintaining the essential DNA of Ian Fleming's creation. But now, after Daniel Craig's explosive farewell in No Time to Die, the future of James Bond hangs precariously in the balance. How did we get here? From creative control battles to casting complications, this is the story of why the world's most famous spy is stuck in development limbo. But before we dive into the complex web of factors keeping Bond off our screens, here's a real quick ask that if you're new to the channel or haven't subscribed yet, please take a second to hit that subscribe button now. It's one small click for you, but a huge deal for us. Thanks. Now, let's explore why we might have to wait a really long time for the next James Bond. Reason number 1, the Amazon acquisition dilemma. At the heart of Bond's current predicament lies an unprecedented power struggle between tradition and corporate interests. In 2022, Amazon made headlines by acquiring MGM Studios for a staggering $8.5 billion, effectively buying half the rights to the James Bond franchise. But here's where things get complicated. While Amazon now owns half of Bond, they can't simply green-light a new film whenever they want. The other half of the creative control remains firmly in the hands of Eon Productions, led by Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson. According to insiders, Broccoli has expressed significant frustration with Amazon's approach to the franchise. She reportedly believes the tech giant's executives aren't suited to managing such a prestigious property. Even more telling, she's said to be uncomfortable with Bond being associated with a corporation that sells everything from toilet paper to tennis shoes. Adding to the complexity, the Wall Street Journal has reported that Broccoli's commitment to protecting Bond's identity goes beyond just resisting Amazon's influence. She's reportedly turned down numerous lucrative deals for Bond TV shows, video games, and cross-promotions. Decisions that might seem puzzling from a business perspective, but align with her vision of Bond as a premium theatrical experience. This clash between corporate expansion and creative integrity mirrors larger industry debates about preserving cinema's traditional format in an increasingly fragmented entertainment landscape. Reason number 2, the casting conundrum. Finding the next James Bond isn't just about picking a talented actor. It's about finding someone who's willing to commit potentially a decade or more of their career to one character. As Barbara Broccoli explained to Variety, when we cast Bond, it's a 10 to 12 year commitment. Not everybody wants to do that. It was hard enough getting Daniel Craig to do it. This extended commitment requirement has already eliminated several fan-favorite candidates. Take Idris Elba, for instance. After years of speculation and fan campaigns, Elba finally told the Associated Press, "I'm not gonna be that guy." More recently, Aaron Taylor Johnson, despite being heavily rumored for the role, has consistently dodged questions about Bond in interviews. The producers aren't just looking for someone who can wear a tuxedo and deliver witty one-liners. They need an actor who can grow with the role and maintain it for potentially 5 or 6 films. The age factor adds another layer of complexity to the casting process. The producers have indicated they're looking for someone in their 30s, old enough to carry the gravitas that Bond requires, but young enough to grow with the role. As casting director Debbie McWilliams revealed, they previously considered casting actors in their 20s, but found they didn't have the gravitas. They didn't have the experience. They didn't have the mental capacity to take it on. This delicate balance of age, experience, and long-term potential has narrowed the field considerably, making the search far more challenging. Reason number 3, the Reinvention Problem. Each new Bond era requires a careful recalibration of the character for contemporary audiences. After Craig's grittier, more emotionally complex interpretation, the franchise faces a crucial decision about its future direction. As Broccoli stated in late 2022, it's about reinvention. Where are we taking it? What do we want to do with the character? This isn't just about casting, it's about reimagining what James Bond means in a post-Craig, post-pandemic, increasingly digital world. The challenge is particularly acute given how Craig's tenure ended. No Time to Die concluded with an unprecedented finale that demands a fresh start. But how do you follow that? Do you acknowledge it happened in the universe, or do you start fresh completely? These aren't just creative decisions, they're choices that will affect the franchise for years to come. This reinvention needs to carefully navigate modern sensibilities while preserving Bond's essential appeal. It's not just about updating gadgets or action sequences, rather it's about reconciling Bond's traditional characteristics with contemporary values. How do you maintain Bond's sophisticated charm while addressing the more outdated elements of his character? The producers have to walk a tightrope between honoring the franchise's legacy and creating a Bond that resonates with modern audiences, all while avoiding the pitfalls of either excessive modernization or stubborn traditionalism. Reason number 4, the director's chair dilemma. Finding the right director for Bond 26 has proven just as challenging as casting the lead. While big names like Christopher Nolan and Denis Villeneuve have been floated by fans and media alike, securing a visionary filmmaker who can balance tradition with innovation remains pretty elusive. Nolan, a self-proclaimed Bond fan, has repeatedly denied involvement despite fan theories that only Nolan can save the franchise. Meanwhile, Villeneuve has publicly expressed interest, but conflicting reports suggest his involvement remains uncertain at best. The reality is that whoever takes the helm needs to satisfy both Eon's vision for Bond and Amazon's commercial interests. No small feat in today's franchise landscape. This search is particularly complex because there isn't even a script to show potential directors. How do you attract top-tier talent when you can't tell them what story they'll be telling? It's a chicken and egg situation that's contributing heavily to the delay. Reason number 5, the pressure of legacy. The James Bond franchise isn't some action series. It's a cultural institution that spans 6 decades. This legacy creates enormous pressure for everyone involved in crafting the next chapter. Consider this. The first James Bond film, Dr. No, was released in 1962. Since then, the franchise has survived multiple cultural shifts, countless imitators, and the end of the Cold War that initially gave it its context. Each new iteration of Bond has had to prove the character's relevance to a new generation while maintaining the core elements that make Bond, well, Bond. The pressure is particularly intense now because Daniel Craig's era was so successful in reinventing the character for the 21st century. His Bond was more human, more vulnerable, and more emotionally complex than ever before. How do you follow that without simply copying what worked already? Reason number 6, the changing media landscape. The entertainment industry has transformed dramatically since Craig first played Bond in 2006. Streaming services dominate, attention spans are shorter, and audience expectations have evolved. Amazon's ownership adds another layer of complexity. While Broccoli has consistently rejected ideas for Bond TV shows or spin-offs, the streaming giant naturally wants to maximize its $8.5 billion investment. This fundamental tension between maintaining Bond's theatrical exclusivity and adapting to modern viewing habits remains unresolved. Reason number 7, the financial stakes. Making a James Bond film isn't just about creative decisions, it's a massive financial undertaking that carries significant risks. No Time to Die cost around $250 million to produce, not counting marketing expenses, and its release during the pandemic resulted in lower than expected returns. The financial pressure is even more intense now because Amazon and Eon have to justify the massive investment in the franchise. The next Bond film needs to not just succeed, it needs to prove that theatrical blockbusters can still thrive in an era dominated by streaming content. Consider this, while the previous gaps between Bond films were typically about 2 to 3 years, we're now looking at potentially 5+ years between releases. That's not some creative pause, it's millions in potential revenue sitting idle. But as Broccoli has made clear, she's more interested in protecting Bond's legacy than rushing out a product just to make some money. The future of Bond. So what does all this mean for the future of James Bond? Despite the challenges, there are reasons for optimism. First, the extended development period could actually benefit the franchise. Instead of rushing to capitalize on No Time to Die's success, the producers have time to carefully consider their next move. Remember, some of the best Bond films came after a period of reinvention. Second, the tension between Eon and Amazon might ultimately produce something special. While corporate oversight can often lead to safe, formulaic decisions, Broccoli's commitment to protecting Bond's theatrical experience could result in a film that proves blockbuster cinema is not dead. And that's it. So what do you think? Who would you like to see as the next James Bond? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and notification bell to stay updated on related videos. Like and share this video with movie-loving friends. This video was made by movie fans for movie fans.